Hi guys, James back with another video, and this one I'm shooting on my Android phone for only the second time because I believe I found the proper editing app that I can try and do the videos the same way as I did on my iPhone, where I can edit in the photos of the movie posters as I talk about them. If I can't, I apologize. I'm going to do my best to get this one looking just as good as the other ones do. Because like I said, I believe I found, after going over 20 some odd apps I think I've been through, and I couldn't find any that were as easy to use as iMovie. But I think I found one. I might be able, this should work. Anyway, without further ado, this one is, and I believe this is going to be the title I'm using because I can't think of any other way to describe it, or a more adequate way to describe it, as in like the top 10 best looking films. Just, it doesn't seem to do it justice, so this one is the top 10 most beautifully shot films that you may not know about. You may, or you may not. Anyway, continuing in my Hidden Gems series. So, we will start with number 10. Number 10 is a Canadian film from 2006 called That Beautiful Somewhere. And it stars Roy Dupuis, Jane McGregor, and Gordon Tootoosis. And you'd recognize all three of them. Gordon Tootoosis you'd recognize from other films. I believe he was in Legends of the Fall. And as the native Indian guy who lives with them and helps around the farm, and helps sort of like as a friend and co-worker to Anthony Hopkins. And Jane McGregor from the other Canadian film I talked about, Flower and Garnet, and Roy Dupuis, pretty well-known Canadian actor from Screamers, the TV show Nikita that was originally based on La Femme Nikita, and more noticeably, he played Maurice the Rocket Richard in the Canadian film The Rocket, sort of like the biopic about Maurice Richard. And this one involves a detective played by Roy Dupuis who's investigating what, along with a young female archaeologist played by Jane McGregor, investigates a body, what they call it, a bog body they found in this bog on native land that reportedly or presumably has certain mystical curative powers. And it's all about them discovering who the identity of the body, what happened to this body, how it ended up there. But they're both, the two individuals, Roy Dupuis and Jane McGregor, play two individuals that are sort of damaged and wounded in their own way, and their relationship to each other as they work through this murder mystery. And it definitely deserves its place on this film because it's, I don't want to say the movie's like a poem, but it's sort of, it has that beautiful flow to it. Just the cinematography, the music, and the story that's told. Just gorgeous. That Beautiful Somewhere. Okay, number 9. Okay. Number 9, we have a film from 2016 called American Honey. Now this one was recommended to me by my friend Dalton. And this one stars Shia LaBeouf, Riley Keough, and the feature debut of Sasha Lane, who, the only other thing that I've seen her in since was the Hellboy reboot, which she did a great English accent in that. But for it being her first film, she does a fantastic job. And this one involves Sasha Lane plays a Star, and she's a young teenager, and she becomes involved with this traveling group of that magazine. They sell magazine subscriptions. They go around from city to city selling magazine subscriptions door to door, and I don't know if it's whether it's really stated on whether it's really on the level or if it's kind of like a scam, but it's run by Riley Keough. She's sort of like the ringleader of the band, and Shia LaBeouf is kind of like her right hand man, and he takes a liking to Star, and they develop a relationship. But Riley sort of has the guys under her kind of under her thumb, under her control. But it's all about like Sasha Lane character coming into her own and becoming part of this group and trying to work her way up in importance, I guess. But I was skeptical of this film because the movie is, what is it? It's at least, no, it's like 2 hours. It's about 2 hours and 45 minutes. Like just a straight up drama that's 2 hours. That's almost 3 hours long. But it's fantastic. It's beautiful looking. The movie is gorgeous. The cinematography, the acting is great. I just couldn't believe that a movie that is that long would be, that's just a straight up drama, would be that entertaining. And it is entertaining, engaging. It is really that good. And it's directed by Andrea Arnold. And I don't know that I've seen anything else that she's done, but this was a fantastic film. And it also has, the name of the movie is taken from the Lady Antebellum song, American Honey, which also features in a very good scene in the movie. So it's American Honey. Okay, next we have a film from 2017, sort of a supernatural horror film. Almost could have gone on my supernatural list. From 2017, called The Crucifixion. And this is a film by Xavier Gens, who did the Hitman film, starring Timothy Olyphant, but he also did The Divide, that post-apocalyptic film I had on my list, as well as a fantastic French horror film called Frontiers, which I don't know that I've found a spot for that yet. I don't know that I've mentioned it already. Maybe not. Anyway, so he did this is one of his more recent ones, and this involves a priest and several nuns get arrested after performing an exorcism on a woman who dies in the process. Excuse me. And a journalist, Nicole Rollins, talks her editor into letting her investigating the botched exorcism. And I won't go over the entire story because that's yours to discover. But it's sort of like someone investigating an exorcism, and A leads to B, leads to C, leads to Z. She ends up getting possessed, and then they have to get her out of it, have an exorcism performed on her. Now that's the very, very, very short of it, long and short of it. But, I mean, the story itself is pretty mysterious, and it's very well told. But the visuals in this movie, oh my goodness. The visuals, especially, there's a lot of slow motion rain shots and stuff, but the shooting style that Xavier Gens employed in this film is gorgeous. Dark movie, very, very dark, scary material, but the movie looks amazing. So I would highly recommend it if you're into like mysteries and exorcism films. This would be one to check out. The Crucifixion. All right. Next, we have a film from 2015, which I said would be on another list, and it is. This is called The Sea of Trees. This is a film by Gus Van Sant. This is the one starring Matthew McConaughey, Ken Watanabe, Naomi Watts, and those are the three most recognizable people in the film. And it isn't a huge cast, but so those are the three principals. Because you get Matthew McConaughey, who is married to Naomi Watts, and she ends up dying prior to the events of the film. And Matthew McConaughey plays a professor, and he is sort of spiraling downward, going on a dark path, and he travels to Japan, to the Sea of Trees, the suicide forest, essentially to commit suicide. And while he's there, he encounters another man in the forest, played by Ken Watanabe, who's sort of at his wit's end, and he ends up, it's sort of like encountering him, it kind of stops him from committing suicide because he feels the need to help this other person. And together, the two of them are trying to navigate their way through the woods. You've got Matthew McConaughey trying to come to terms with his wife's death, and Ken Watanabe has his own journey he's going on. But there's certain things that Ken Watanabe's character says that sort of mess with McConaughey's mind, where like, is he even real? How does he know these things that he's saying? And it's the mystery he has to solve on, like, how are they going to get out of there and resolve their respective situations. But this one, like The Forest, it has supernatural, sort of supernatural elements to it. But this one is pretty much a straight-up drama with a bit of mystery in there. But it's a very beautiful film, and it has a very beautiful, beautiful, sweet ending that I think is paid off big time from stuff that's sprinkled throughout the film. And just Matthew McConaughey and Ken Watanabe are fantastic in the film, and Naomi Watts is too for her little bit in the movie. A fantastic movie from Gus Van Sant, The Sea of Trees. I don't understand the hate this one got. It really got buried and crapped on. I don't understand it. Okay. Next one, we have number 6. We have a movie from 2009 called A Single Man. Now, this was the feature film directorial debut of Tom Ford, the famous fashion designer, who I had talked about on another list. Might have been my top 25 of the decade. Anyway, Nocturnal Animals, which was another gorgeous movie, but it's fairly well known, I suppose. I mean, I did the top 25 of the decade, which is just my top 25. Doesn't matter if you knew about them or not. That was my personal favorites. But for this list, I went with A Single Man. I don't know that a lot of people encountered this film. If they go for Nocturnal Animals, great. But the movie he started with was an equally beautiful film. Not nearly as good as Nocturnal Animals, but a very simple story that's beautifully told and beautifully shot, of course. And this one stars Colin Firth, Julianne Moore, Nicholas Hoult, Matthew Good, Jennifer Goodwin, Lee Pace, Aaron Daniels, and it stars Colin Firth as, I believe he's a professor. Yeah, he's a college professor, and he his partner Jim died years ago, and his best friend, sort of his gal pal, is Julianne Moore, and he's in another one where he's in a dark place and he's not sure what to do. He keeps having nightmares about his partner Jim, and who is you hear Jim's voice on the phone at one point, and it's the uncredited voice of John Hamm, whose voice is pretty unmistakable. And it's sort of, the movie's about his journey of depression and working through it and coming out the other side. And Julianne Moore's there to help him along. But beautiful, beautiful movie. The visuals are just stunning in this one. That is A Single Man. All right, number five. Number five, we have a film from 2013 called Stoker. And this was the English language debut film for Park Chan-wook, who directed the Vengeance trilogy, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, Lady Vengeance. He did The Handmaiden. Other films before the Vengeance trilogy, which I haven't seen. But this was his English language debut. And this one stars Mia Wasikowska, Matthew Good, and Nicole Kidman primarily. Let me see, you've got Dermot Mulroney is also in there, Jackie Weaver, Lucas Till, Alden Ehrenreich. Harmony Korine is in there too, in one of his rare acting roles. And this one is sort of, got Mia Wasikowska, and after her father, played by Dermot Mulroney, dies in a horrific accident, she's living with her mother, played by Nicole Kidman, who, does she get, who's a very cold, emotionless woman in this film, and the relationship between her and Mia Wasikowska is strained, to say the least. And her dead father's brother, played by Matthew Good, comes to visit, and he's also an equally creepy presence there. And the story is good. The story and the mystery in the film as it unfolds is good. But the visuals, not just the visuals, but the sound. So it'd be also like one of the most beautiful films I've ever heard. Because the visuals are stunning, but the sound effects, it's almost like every single sound that occurs in the movie is amplified. But it works for this. And, oh man. It's a strange movie, written by Wentworth Miller, oddly enough, who doesn't act that much anymore. I think he more writes now, but he was the star of the show Prison Break, and he wrote this script, and Park Chan-wook directed it. Yeah. Gorgeous, gorgeous movie in visuals and sound. All right, so let's see. So that was Stoker. Number four, we have a film from 2018 called Leave No Trace, and this was based on a book, which was based on actual events, and this one stars Ben Foster and Thomasin McKenzie. And let me see. Jeff Kober is in there, Dale Dickey. Those will be the most recognizable people in the film. And you've got Ben Foster and Thomasin McKenzie playing father and daughter. Ben Foster is an ex-military guy with PTSD. And after the mother died, he took his daughter and they went to live in the woods. And because he can't function in society anymore, so he took his daughter when she was just a little girl to go live in the woods. And he has all this survivalist knowledge, and he taught her how to survive in the woods. And they have been surviving for several years in the woods undetected by anyone. They gather their own food, have their own shelter and stuff, and they survive very, very happily in the woods. And then one day, when the daughter is out scouting around or something, she gets spotted by a hiker or something, and that alerts the authorities to their presence. And nobody's allowed to live in like the provincial parks or woods or areas like that, so they get them out of the woods and they try to reintegrate them back into society. They have him, give him a job. I think they place her in a foster family, and they try to reintegrate themselves back into society, and then it doesn't really work. So they leave and go across country and end up living in the woods again. But they live nearby with this sort of like a commune, community of people who also live around in the woods and try to start over again. And this was notable for being the follow-up to, because it was directed by Deborah Granick, who her last film was Winter's Bone, the one that launched Jennifer Lawrence's career. She got an Oscar nomination for her role in that film, and then she just went on from there. And this movie is just beautiful, beautiful. Every shot. I mean, all the scenes in the woods are more beautiful, and then the rest in town are still well acted. But the movie really comes to life when they're living in the woods, and just the scenery is gorgeous. So that was Leave No Trace. Now, number 3. Excuse me. Number 3, we have a Korean film from 2018. You know, I always say I'm a big fan of Korean film industry. They just have some fantastic films they put out that are, a lot of them are as good or even better than movies that are put out in North America. Just the storytelling that they have there is just fantastic. This one, I didn't recognize really the majority of the actors or the directors. It's directed by Lee Chang-dong, and it stars, Yu Ah-in, Jeon Jong-soo. I don't know, I'm butchering the names, I know. I didn't recognize any of the actors except for Stephen Yeun from Walking Dead, Glenn. And this one's all in Korean, so he's speaking all in Korean in the film too. But essentially, you have Lee Jong-soo is sort of like an aspiring novelist performing odd jobs, and he ends up meeting with, what is her name? Shin Ha-mi, and they meet up and sort of form a relationship. They're friends, and then they become kind of brief lovers. And he visits her apartment a few times, and then she has plans to go to Africa to do some missionary work. So she leaves, and then they keep in touch, and then she returns. So he goes to meet her at the airport, and so he sees her, but she's brought along a brand new boyfriend, this rich guy that she met doing missionary work as well in Africa, and this is played by Stephen Yeun. And I've been telling my friend Dalton about this movie, because I'm saying, like, you have got to watch this. He's like, I know, I have to watch this, because it's so gorgeous. And it becomes sort of like a love triangle there, because she's back, but she has a new boyfriend. Well, he still cares for her, but Stephen Yeun, his character is sort of like this rich guy who is sort of, there's something off about him, the way he treats her, the way he basically treats everything. He just basically treats everything like a game. He's rich, he doesn't have to care about anything, he just does whatever the hell he wants to suit whatever emotional needs he has. And he tells the main guy at one point that one of his pastimes or his hobbies is to go out randomly and find some shack or a house out there and burn it down. Hence the title of the movie, Burning. And he tells him, like, yeah, he's gonna go out and burn something one of these days or soon, and like he'll find out about it. Well, at one point, the guy calls the girl, and you hear some scuffling on the phone, and then it hangs up, and then she disappears. And Stephen Ewan comes back, and he's all around, and now he's just acting all casual and stuff. He's meeting with new people and stuff, but no mention of her. Well, the guy isn't going to let it go. He needs to find out what happened to his friend. So he wonders if the buildings that Stephen Ewan is burning are actually people he's going to kill. Now, it's just a thing that he's come up with on his own. Whether or not it's true, you don't know. But he doesn't trust him, so he wants to investigate, follow him, and track down, find out if he knows what happened to the girl. And that's where I'll leave it. But the movie, like, some of the stuff takes place out in the country. Just the way this movie's put together, and some of the scenery out in the country is just breathtaking. Breathtaking. It's such a beautiful movie. That is Burning. Okay. Number two, we have a film from 2013 called Them Body Saints. And this film, Ain't Them Body Saints, is a film by David Lowery, who did Pete's Dragon, The Old Man and the Gun, but he also did a film that I'm a big fan of called A Ghost Story, which stars the two people that star in this movie, which is Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck. Now, you've also got Ben Foster, Keith Carradine, Nate Parker, and it essentially is, you have Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck, and they're a married couple, and she's pregnant, but they're also criminals, and they perform random robberies and stuff like that. Well, in one of them, they get followed back to their house, and they're in a shootout with the cops, and she's shooting back, she accidentally shoots Ben Foster, who's one of the cops, and she's like, oh no, I accidentally shot someone, and he decides to sacrifice himself for her, so he surrenders to the cops, and she goes free. So he gets sent to prison. She ends up giving birth, and he writes letters occasionally because he's in prison. He's thinking of her. He wants to get back to her one of these days. And she's trying to move on with her life, raising her young daughter. And the Ben Foster, the police officer, is coming around to help her when he can. You've also got Keith Carradine, who's sort of like the crime boss who was giving the jobs out to them. Well, you have these ne'er-do-wells, these outlaws coming along because you don't know exactly why. They seem to want the money that Casey Affleck had put away. And Keith Carradine is like, this is none of my business. You can go try and find someone, but don't come back here and do not threaten her or her child. So there's a lot of narration sort of from Casey Affleck as he's reading the letters, or as she's reading the letters in his voice. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful film from beginning to end. And sort of like a Terrence Malick film, but with a plot, if that makes sense. Anyways, that is Ain't Them Body Saints. All right, number one, we have a film, Australian film, from, what's the year? Australian film from 2011 called The Hunter. And this one is directed by Daniel Netheim, and this one stars Willem Dafoe, Sam Neill, Francis O'Connor, and those are the most Sullivan Stapleton. Those are the most recognizable people you'd see in the film. And Willem Dafoe, sort of, he is a hunter, and he's hired by this sort of shady company to hunt down and capture, dissect, and bring back the infamous Tasmanian devil, which I think they say in the movie that it's only ever been photographed once in history. It's a very elusive animal, and it's on the verge of extinction. Very, very on the verge of extinction. And apparently it has some sort of venom that it can inject or secrete or something that they want to get their hands on, this shady company. And so he's sent there to hunt it down, but they also send rival hunters. And it's also, he gets involved with this family, Frances O'Connor and her kids, and her father or father-in-law, played by Sam Neill, and he ends up staying with them while he's going off hunting this creature. But there's also this thing about the logging companies that don't want anyone, that are taking jobs away from people. They don't want anyone wrecking up the conservation areas, and they don't take kindly to outsiders. So they have this thing against Willem Dafoe from the get-go. And so there's that conflict there. People's lives might be in danger. And he is doing what he can to try and track this animal down, but he's also dealing with rival hunters and the locals that want him out of there. But the real star of the movie is the scenery. Just every shot of him on his own going through the countryside is just, I keep saying it's beautiful, it's staggering, it's stunning. It is. And it's just the best one. Best looking one, I would think, for this list. And unbelievably beautiful. Anyway, so that was the last one. And I hope you enjoyed this list as well. And I hope this one works out with the editing app I found. Anyway, so I'll see you next time, and like and subscribe, and toodles.